Hello, boys. Been a long time. I always say that, but it kind of feels like it. I'm back earlier than I thought I would be. My ideas just piled up, and when that happens, it's like you gotta get them out. You have to get your ideas out. And I think this is what happens with everyone, and it results in very long rants. And if you don't have anyone to talk to, you talk to yourself, become like senile. And yeah, I mean, if that seems like a normal healthy state to you, then cool, I guess, to each his own. But yeah, that's what this channel is kind of like therapy for me. That's why I started writing, why I started vlogging and so on. I have too much to say, and you just gotta get it out. Not to sound like cheesy or whatever, but you just gotta express yourself. So this is the first of a series of videos. I could do it all in one take, but I get the feeling it's gonna be pretty long, so I'll just break it up. It feels like 2-3 hours just of material here. I don't know why people take such pride in doing things in one take. I guess it's just to say, look how not contrived I am. Like, look how real I am. So, and one more thing I want to say before we get into this video is, one of my main viewers on this channel is somebody I talk to fairly regularly, and he said he's going away for a while. And I don't know, hiatuses kind of suck, because like oftentimes you'll say that and then like you'll feel like you'll immediately come back, so it's better, sometimes it's better to just do things. But anyways, I just want to say good luck to that person, and I know that they're going through some crap right now, and I mean, that's life. So I just want to say good luck to that person. But anyways, moving on into the video. It's crazy, like no race has to be taught to hate black people. Like pretty much all races do, including blacks, even we, and they just refuse to admit to themselves that they don't like black people. And I was just thinking about that, like, you have to be taught to hate white people. And because I saw a little girl walking with her mother, and she was like talking to her mom, and she's like, "Mom, today in class we spoke about how horrible white people are." And I was just like, damn, this is what black kids are growing up being taught en masse, to hate white people. But the other way around, which is much more rare, is considered to be bad. And yeah, that just kind of struck me, like, and is it even hate really, or is it just like ethnocentricity, with the nationalists or fascists or what have you? But with young black kids, like, they're overtly being taught to hate, and that's crazy to me. But anyways, even though, like, if you look at the stats, and I know a lot of people feel like you can't trust the FBI stats and all that stuff, and sure, maybe there's some reason to believe that. But it's like, yeah, like, the stats clearly correlate with reality. I mean, you mean to tell me your eye test doesn't correlate with like the crime and the higher crime rates and stuff, and higher victimizations of blacks against whites and so on? Like, my eye test confirms that. Like, every time I see somebody acting like a crazy hooligan or like starting a fight with somebody, and I'm gonna get into this too later, because I have like recent real life experience with this. There's always like a black person, or like a ghetto black woman, or maybe a Latino, like occasionally. And I have so many hours of just being out and about in the public, so I should know, of all people, at least how it is in New York. But anyways, just like women, another thing I've noticed is like women do this too. Like, there's Michelle Langley's first book, where she's a lot more feminist than she is in her second book. It's like you can see her growth from book 1 to book 2. But anyways, she was talking about how women have like a generational contempt for men because of whatever oppression that they perceive has transpired over the course of centuries and millennia or whatever. And I guess that makes sense. I mean, you could just as easily refer to it as just evolution, but generational trauma, I guess you could call it. And that's how black people feel towards whites, you know. But it's like, in the case of women, at least it's a crime. They're taking vengeance on men and being bitter and angry over a crime that was never even real. And even if it was, they're attacking the wrong people, you know. It's not like men specifically conspired to make the world that way. It's just like, that's just how it turned out evolutionarily, and like that just turned out to be the setup that was best for humanity. And it's not like men had it great either, you know, back in the day or whatever. Just because the 1950s, men in the 1950s and before didn't complain about their lot in life, that doesn't mean that they weren't oppressed. You know, in fact, the fact that women started complaining means that they weren't oppressed, because oppressed people don't complain. They're too silenced and they're too suppressed for anybody to even hear them. They just get told to shut up and go back to work. And, you know, side note, that's why breakups can be really bad for men, because oftentimes the wife is the only person that he can talk to, and as she leaves and he needs someone to talk to even more, because he has this emotional dependency that goes completely unchecked and unrecognized. And men are expected to be tough, like even in the way that we exemplify our straightness, like always talking about like, oh, you know, with the woman that we'll bang and like what we'll do to sexually to like attractive women and all that, and like breaking each other's balls and making fun of each other. It's just a form of gender policing and sparring and like training each other for what a masculine life will be. And lots of creatures do this sort of training and sparring with each other. I have a video where there's like 2 deer and they're like locking horns. You know, that's what we do. We do that socially. We do that sometimes physically as men, and even women, you know, women mostly socially. Like, but you notice among the more quote unquote primitive races, there's even a physical aspect, like in New York. I don't know if this is a big thing in other regions, but it's like slap boxing and like, you know, fighting, sometimes outright fighting is like, that's a thing. Like that's a part of group rituals, and it's not like hatred or anything like that between the people doing this. And I mean like fighting for real. Like that's how like the men when I was growing up were like. But there was no hatred, there was no animosity whatsoever. It was just like you just fight and you just like toughen each other up. Iron sharpens iron, like they say. But anyways, but yeah, if a man shows any signs of emotional neediness or what have you, that makes it even less likely for him to receive that, particularly from women. It's like an emotional triple whammy. They say no man is an island, but it's like, meanwhile, we're still expected to be islands in every sense of the word. Because guess what? No one really gives a shit about us. Like, you're lucky if even your family gives a little bit of a shit. And even with the mental illness thing, it's like society really only cares about men's mental health insofar as virtue signaling and how much mental illness affects the utility of that man. You know, the care that women get is much more visceral and deep and emotional and inherent to them being females. And I'm going to get into that a little bit more. I won't specify when I do, but I will, because I know I definitely had some more about that in a, you know, it's going to be in a future video though. Or not a future video, but like this is essentially a very long podcast. But it's going to be broken up because, I mean, that seems like a better way to go about it. Anyways. So the men that women attack, for the most part, as part of this post-traumatic or generational trauma or what have you, were born in the post-feminist era. Just like white people born post-slavery probably didn't even have ancestors who owned slaves, are still held accountable for that shit. That's part of why I don't think reparations will happen for black people, because like, how do you even do that? I feel like the only real way you could do that justifiably is if you specifically track like whose family profited from slave trade, and whose family were actual slaves and so on. And a lot of Jews are going to pop up and they're going to have to pay black people, and we know that this world will never allow such a thing to happen because it's controlled by them in the first place. But at the same time, who knows, maybe they'll cuck white people enough that white people end up paying for something that wasn't even necessarily something they profited off of the most, or per capita. It's like the biggest mental con job ever. But yeah, women attack all men based on the actions of a tiny minority within a minority of rich Chads and old Jewish men and like rich white women. That's the most evil thing about Apex Fallacy. They take their anger for men with actual power out on men who don't have shit, because they're too cowardly to attack people who actually have power. And it's like kicking a rabid dog but leaving the owner alone. And Cat Williams kind of did something like this, who's one of my favorite comedians. He had something with Kevin Hart, and he's making fun of him and like talking shit about him, and it became a huge controversy or whatever. And he said, I meant to cut the snake, but I meant to cut the head of the snake. So at least, like, this is a person who was at least intelligent enough to realize that he was attacking the pawn. Like, he wasn't attacking the actual player. And he's not attacking black people while saying that the master is some elusive white man who we shall not name. Assuming, But anyways, okay, so this segues right into what I wanted to talk about. Like, there's a YouTube channel called Vlad TV, and I watch their interviews, because, the Jew that runs this organization pretty much shuts the hell up and, like, lets the people talk, and the interviews are pretty raw, and there's, like, a huge, he kind of filled that market demand, I guess, or whatever, and, obviously it doesn't hurt that he's Jewish. And there's a lot of like hip hop and black people and like people who are known in the black community and even outside, and like he has mob bosses or like former mob bosses, like all these kinds of people on his channel for interviews and so on. And so Aries Spears, and trust me, this is all going to tie together eventually. But yeah, Aries Spears is a comedian who he had on there. And this dude is so, like, I don't dislike him, but he comes off as so cowardly to me because he can't call out Alex Borstein, who is a Jew who does the voice for Meg from Family Guy, and she was on Mad TV, I believe, at some point. I can't remember what the characters that she played. But apparently she is super racist, and she's always making black jokes and stuff, probably kind of like a Sarah Silverman type, another Jew. And, always talking shit, like, she makes like a super racist joke. I think it was kind of funny, actually. But if you look up Aries Spears, Alex Borstein, I think he probably talked about the joke at some point, but he's afraid to call her out, and it's like, damn, man, how much are you gonna bend over for these people? And that kind of brings me into Willie D, who's another person who does interviews on this on this channel and in other places, and has made songs and stuff about quote unquote coons. But I don't know, like, I haven't seen his entire body of work. I haven't seen every interview that he's done, but the few things that I've seen, like, he comes off as the real coon because he doesn't utter any white or Jewish names. Like, The only people this dude calls out are other black people. And then he claims to be this super pro-black person. But meanwhile, all you do is tear other black people down while your wife is at the Korean hair salon getting her weave or whatever. Because a lot of these dudes, these Afrocentric dudes don't even date black women, and at most they'll date like a light-skinned European looking black woman or whatever, or they'll do the next best thing, or date like a mixed woman, and they're so supposedly Afrocentric. But they won't even go to Africa and find like a nice, trained, loyal wife or whatever. So yeah, I just thought that's funny. They're hypocrites, projecting their own self-loathing onto other people. And Stacey Dash, who's one of the quote-unquote coons that this guy calls out a lot, isn't even fully black, if I'm not mistaken. So, and these are the same kinds of black people that took my one video completely out of context and blew it up on the media or whatever. The truth about looks maxing, where I was talking about like how I need to bleach my skin and all that shit. Completely took that out of context as me advocating for that, and like I feel like it's some gay boule type shit with the like this supposedly secret society that exists with black people. That just seems to be like a secret society for really uppity pro-gay black people like Oprah and shit, and like the people who supposedly bullied Dave Chappelle because they didn't like the way he was portraying black people or whatever. Anyways, give me 1 second here. I'm just reading my note here. But yeah, I just don't like the fact that people like Willie D, like they'll call out 100 black people before they name a single fucking Jew. Like, come on now. But everybody else is the coon though. That doesn't make sense. So, one last thing I want to touch on. I don't know where else to fit this part, so I'm just throwing this in here. This is probably the most random video of this batch of videos. But I was thinking about Taoism recently, because I keep getting recommended videos about Taoism and all this stuff, and I was just like, like resistance without non-resistance and that kind of monastic monk kind of behavior. I was just thinking, is there limits to that? Like, what's the limit? Like, do you resist at any point? Because you can't just resist nothing. I mean, even just being alive, you're resisting death essentially. And that's probably why like some of these people, like these super spiritual Indians and so on, and like Hindus, they like fast until they die of hunger and all this stuff. Jesus, that was loud as fuck. I'm gonna explain. That was a text on my phone, and I'm gonna explain who texted me. I'm gonna talk about the person who just texted me. But anyways, so that's funny that just happened. I was just thinking, like, it's all up at this. The Taoism stuff is all up, or Taoism is all up to interpretation, And I actually knew someone like who died, like a family friend named Tao. I just remembered him randomly, but that was literally his name, Tao, T-A-O. So I assume his parents were into that kind of stuff. A lot of black people are kind of into the Asian culture and kung fu movies and shit. But anyways, so it's up to interpretation. Like, I guess it's just saying, like, for me, it's just like, like that whole ideology of Wu Wei and the way and all that stuff is like, don't let the situation control you or let other people control you. And it comes back to balance again. And that's going to be one of the overarching themes of this batch of videos. But it's like, should I be okay being homeless or having like another dude cuck me or bang my wife or whatever the hell? Like what's the limit to resistance, I feel like this kind of mentality can easily be applied to cuckery and like just bending over and like accepting any kind of treatment from the world. And maybe this is why YouTube is recommending these videos to me. And why, videos like that will never be removed from YouTube or anything like that. Anything that's promoting pacifism or like peace or like, I just feel like, I don't know, like I have to second guess it, and take it with a grain of salt. So that's kind of me rethinking the whole, yin yang pacifism and so on. But that's the end of this video. I'm gonna do another one soon.